This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Welcome to this February 14th edition of Real Talk. Coming up in just under an hour, we're going to talk to a chemist who's going to take us into the science and the chemistry of chocolate. We got you covered on your Valentine's Day content. And coming up in about a half an hour from now, we'll talk to Narwhal founder Emma Gilchrist and World Press Photo of the Year award-winning photographer, photojournalist Amber Bracken. Why are they running their lawsuit against the RCMP up to the Supreme Court? We'll find out why they're suing the RCMP. Of course, all of this related to Amber Bracken, arrested by police on assignment on BC's West Coast. That's coming up. But we lead off today with a 3-time Juno Award winner. He's a Canadian country star with 4 #1 hits on the Canadian country charts. He was born right here in our home city of Edmonton, raised on a cattle ranch near St. Paul, Alberta. His newest album, The Compass Project, a series of 4 releases, starting with the South album, which is just out, and everybody's talking about it, but in a bit of a different way. Brett Kissel's facing backlash for his song Line in the Sand. Joining us live in the Real Talk studio. It's nice to see you. I appreciate your availability on this.
No, thank you, Ryan. It's great. Like, we've known each other for a long, long time, and it's great to sit across the desk. Like, and congratulations. This studio looks amazing. Your show is great. It's honestly, it's great to connect. It really is.
You and I were reminiscing as you arrived just a few minutes ago, and looking back, I remember when you were first starting your career, you were putting albums out when you were like a tween.
Yeah,
like, I don't think you were
absolutely.
barely a teenager, and you were releasing records.
On the good old 8-channel days.
That's
absolutely.
right.
I remember your introductions, and I remember being so excited to be on TV, with you and playing some songs that I wrote, or some songs that, were cover songs like I've Been Everywhere and all those great songs from the classics. It was a really, really good chapter, and now we're into a new chapter. So
yeah. We've spoken many times in past. This conversation feels a little bit different. There's a lot of buzz around your album. Some people love it, and some people are taking really big runs at you. I mean, let me ask you plainly. Let's set some context for people that aren't familiar with the tune. And this is one track on the new album. There's going to be 4 albums. We'll talk about the project today. Line in the Sand. From the lyrics, I see people going crazy. Good lives torn apart. Windows boarded up and shut down. I see broken hearts. I should have you singing this. My boss, he comes up to me, says, I better toe the line. Well, you can take away my paycheck, but you can't take my pride. Because I stand up for my freedom, and I stand up for my family. I stand up for this life I love, and I stand up for my country. So if you try to take me down, let me show you where I stand. Hate me if you want to, but this is my line in the sand. Did you set out to write a Freedom Convoy anthem?
I don't think it's a Freedom Convoy anthem at all. I think that song is just my own personal mandate, like my own personal thoughts on the entire situation that we've had over the past 3 years, but also exactly where I'm at in this exact version of myself. These are the things that really matter to me. And I think these are the things that matter to a lot of people. At the same time, like any piece of art, like any song, people can take it however they want to. Whatever they want their lyrics to be, whether it be a rap song or a country song or whatever. This, for me, is just deeply personal. So the fact that a lot of people on social media have actually started to dislike it, or a lot of people on social media have decided to use it as an anthem for their cause, that's just what music does. So I didn't set out for any of that. I just wrote this song one day in a moment where I was really frustrated with what was going on in the world. And now that I'm independent, I felt like this is a really good time to release this song, because a lot of people ask me my opinion on certain things, and I don't really want to talk about it, but I don't mind singing about it. Johnny Cash did. So that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, what is the difference? Like, take me into the mindset of a singer-songwriter. You say you reached that point where you were really frustrated. Was there, I guess it's maybe a bit of a personal question, but was there like a breaking point or something that happened in particular when you started thinking about a line in the sand?
Yeah, not a real one breaking point, but it's just years and years and years of lockdowns and a bunch of things that I didn't agree with. And now, I've come out in the wash that's saying, hey, you know what? Where we're at today, we've made a lot of mistakes over the past 3 years. So for me, I'm sitting at home, just totally wishing that I could, be out on the road again, understanding that things in Canada were a lot different than the United States as well. my wife and I, we were living in Nashville and we're having a great time in Nashville. Then you come across the border and okay, everything is completely changed in terms of rules and regulations of what you cannot do. So I just wrote that song, never thinking that it actually would ever be recorded. But I felt, in talking with my wife Cecilia and talking with my family as well as my team, that it actually takes a lot of courage to release a song that actually could be controversial, although there was never the intention to write a controversial song. I mean, Johnny Cash never intended to write a controversial song. He was just writing country music. Same thing with me.
You've referenced him twice in 3 minutes. Is he one of the biggest influences on your career?
What
was it about him and the way that he carried himself? I mean, aside from the musical talent.
Well, I think everything that he stood for. He stood for a lot of the things that, I talk about in that song in particular. There were a lot of things. There was a really unique documentary on Kim on Netflix where he was invited to the White House to go and perform. And the White House had asked him to sing a couple of songs in particular that are actually very pointed towards a cause. But he actually was focusing a lot more on the war in Vietnam. He was focusing a lot more on a record that he had called Bitter Tears, which is about Indigenous culture and the Native American spirit and how it's being lost, and all the research that he had done, and saying like, hey, this is all like one big cover up. Like this, we should honor Indigenous people. And so he wrote that record, and those are the songs he chose to sing in the White House, and the president was really upset about it. But he kind of stood for what he believed in, and you fast forward, that was in the 70s, and you fast forward when he passed away in 2003, and definitely a heroic figure in American and in all musical culture. I don't set out to be a hero or even relate to Johnny Cash in that particular way. I know I'm going to die one day, and people will look at my body of work and maybe talk about the song or maybe completely forget about this song.
Well, one of the interesting things for me to watch as an outsider in all this is that when you say you're a hero, some people are painting you as a villain right now, and there's a lot of some of the backlash around
that's
this
social
album
media,
is really ramping up. Well, give me your insight on that. Like, you have to have expected. I know you're a smart guy. With a song like this, as pointed as this is, you had to expect some backlash. But it's it's to the point where it's running up the chain to. You have a great partnership with the Edmonton Oilers. You've sung a lot of anthems for them in some high-profile events. I've seen people tagging the Oilers on tweets. They don't want to see you singing anthems anymore. People are taking this really personally.
But, there's a lot of people that are very, very supportive of my craft and know exactly what I do in the community and how much I love this city, how much I love this province, and how much I love Canada. So at the same time, it's a pendulum that swings. So there's a bunch of people that are very, very noisy on one particular side of the issue. And that's actually okay. What I do blame is social media. Because social media and Twitter in particular as a platform is a very negative and a very, very dark platform. I haven't had a good time on Twitter in at least 5 years, maybe even a full decade. And the reality is that Twitter's where people, in my opinion, it's only my opinion, where people come to fight. And they want to fight and they want to voice their opinion. Yet if there's anybody who has an issue, if it's Bobby123 or Sally321 on Twitter, I have no issue. The same way you and I are having a conversation right now. Let's pour a cup of coffee because it's the morning. Let's pour a drink because it's the afternoon. And let's talk. I want to know why this song hurts you so much. That wasn't my intention to hurt you. Never. In the case of my music, would I ever set out to write a song to hurt somebody? But if we want to talk about it, go ahead. Don't write on Twitter about how much you hate me. If you want to say it to my face. Let's do that. That's not a problem because maybe, just maybe, or actually I do believe we could find common ground on the issue. And someone could say, because of this, because of these lyrics, it really affects me. Oh, okay, well, you know what? I'm sorry about that. Not my intention. Or I can say, hey, what I meant was this. Oh, okay, well, thank you for clearing that up. And we can actually be friends if you want to find common ground. But on Twitter, there's no common ground.
Do you run your own Twitter account?
Oh, yeah.
Like, so you read the replies, you read the mentions,
well,
it's
actually,
Brett Kissel reading them?
It is me, but at the same time, I need to separate myself because that's actually not reality. Social media is not reality. Instagram versus reality, that's not my reality. If you know me, you know where my heart is. And I don't know some of these people that are writing terrible shit on Twitter. Doesn't affect me whatsoever.
Do you think that the song, you alluded to this, do you think that a part of the song or that the lyrics are being misinterpreted? And if so, do you think there's, a line in the sand is kind of I was debating this the other day with a pal. We were reading through your lyrics, we were listening to the song. I'm obviously, preparing to talk to you. And I said, the thing about a line in the sand, it's interesting because it's a very aggressive statement and it's also not at all. Like in the sense that a line in the sand can be washed away by a wave right away. But if you say to someone, I've drawn my line in the sand, you're saying, hell no, we won't go kind of idea. It's that type of thing. So what's being misinterpreted, do you think, about what you wrote?
Or I think lyrics are meant to be interpreted however they want. For me, a line in the sand is just a very simple statement that there are things in life that I will do and I won't do. There are things in life that I stand for and I won't stand for. And it's on every topic, every issue. We could talk about sports, and my line in the sand is that no, even though I'm playing in Calgary, I will not wear a Flames jersey. That's my line in the sand. You can have comedy with it. But for me, on certain issues, this was just me in the creative outlet drawing my line in the sand. So it wasn't actually meant to be super aggressive. It means that I'm accepting that you can hate me the same way on Twitter. You can hate me if you want to. That's okay. That's actually your right. You have completely full opportunity to hate me, hate my lyrics, not listen to me sing an anthem, never buy a ticket again. That's okay. I wish that you would. It would be wonderful if we could find common ground and if we can actually form a relationship. We don't have to be friends, but we can form a relationship and we can actually talk about certain issues. But on Twitter, nobody wants to talk. They just want to fight. So I don't engage, no problem. But you and I mean, the show is called Real Talk, and you and I have an opportunity to sit across a desk, look each other in the eye, and get somewhere. I mean, we've done it before. We've had our differences. That's a wonderful thing about the human spirit, but on social media, it doesn't exist, so I won't engage.
I want to be clear. Our differences earlier were me and your record label at the time,
true.
not me and you. But
we did settle it over a bottle of whiskey like
Albertans
do.
I was pissed off at your record label, and you swung by the TV station, and we did settle it over a bottle of whiskey, and that was about 15 years ago. I think it was about 12 years ago, actually.
Yeah.
And so we do have a history of talking things out and having uncomfortable conversations, and I appreciate it. You had to know what you were doing when you retweeted Jamie Soleil the other day, and I wonder if I don't know if this amplifies your brand, if this hurts your brand, because she's on her own wavelength right now. Does that hurt you long term?
You know what? I didn't think about it whatsoever. Honestly, Jamie, I'm not following what so many people are doing or saying because I'm just not on social media. So Jamie and I have known each other for a very, very long time, and Jamie's got a very good heart. I can say that 100%. You can't say that, oh, she doesn't have a good heart. She's definitely very extreme in her views. There's a lot of things that Jamie has said in the past that I don't agree with. There's a lot of things that Jamie says in today's or 20 years ago that I do agree with. There's a lot of things that you may say that I disagree with or I do agree with. So the biggest thing is that was not meant to trigger anything. I was very grateful for what she said about my record. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
Do you have to, does a guy like you, when you're plotting it, because something I think is relevant, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is, of all of the albums you've released, this is the first that you're releasing independently.
Yeah.
So we're in a similar boat.
Yeah.
You know, our eggs are in one basket and we're betting on ourselves.
Yes.
Do you have to be more careful about this type of stuff now? I mean, you have controversial business partners, right? Like W. Brett Wilson, you and him do business together.
Yeah.
Very outspoken guy, retweeting Jamie Soleil, stuff like this. I guarantee on one hand, your album sales will skyrocket from people who love them, but you might see no love from people that have no love for folks like those. Do you have to be more strategic about that?
No, because I'm caring a lot more about caring less. I mean, when I was part of the label system, it was the best decade of my life. I'm so grateful for my time with Warner Music. Just what an extraordinary group of people, and what an amazing memory for me to learn from them and the label system. I have not a bad thing to say. I just knew at this time is time for me to spread my wings, really. And as an independent, I have a smaller team. It's a very mighty team, and I'm very proud of my team, but I just don't care about that stuff. Brett Wilson, I know his heart. I have a wonderful relationship with him. He says a lot of controversial things, and I roll my eyes. Sometimes he and I can have a one-on-one conversation and say, how do you feel about that? And we'll say, maybe we push a boundary a little bit too far, or this and that. But at the same time, that human being in particular has raised tens of millions of dollars for extraordinary causes and has made the city of Calgary, the province of Alberta, the country of Canada, a much better place. I watched him write a check for $1 million for the Saskatchewan Children's Hospital. That's a pretty special thing to see with my own two eyes. Does it absolve you of certain things that could harm a lot of people? No, not necessarily. But at the same time, you need to understand that people have good hearts if you choose to have those conversations and get to know them on a deeper level. So when it says about me retweeting Brett Wilson or anything like that, that's just social media. That's just noise to me. It really is. It's making this issue much bigger than it needs to be.
How important is social media to your business?
The platforms are still important because that's how you get your music out. But at the same time, it's a very, very dark and treacherous path. It really can be. We've all experienced it, both you and me. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's great because we've got a platform and we've got things that we want to promote. And actually, if you want to look at my page or you want to look at my wife's page or a lot of pages that we follow, that's just pure positivity. That's just pure light. That's a wonderful thing about social media where we can amplify that and those messages. That's a very beautiful thing about social media. But still, in this current chapter, and with this song in particular, it sure got negative in a hurry, but wasn't my intention.
Do you feel pressure as a prominent, personality, as someone in the public eye, to pick a side in something like this? With pandemic restrictions, I go back to this lyric where you say, my boss comes up to me, says, I better toe the line. You can take away my paycheck, but you can't take my pride. That's going to resonate with some people.
Of course.
There are people that refuse to get vaccinated. There are people that refuse other pandemic restrictions. They refuse to adhere to those. And in some circumstances, they paid for it with their livelihood or with their employment. Did you feel pressure to pick a side and have their back in a sense?
No, I didn't feel any pressure other than the internal pressure to really look and discern for myself what's really going on. What's really going on at this particular time in my life? What's best for my family? So the only pressure that I felt was doing what was best for my family, and I made a lot of choices. I chose to homeschool our children. I chose to spend time in the United States when everything was really shut down. Well, let's go to Nashville. Let's go and let's it's open there, so let's go and experience concerts and go play a bunch of shows in the United States. So for me, there was only pressure, and the only pressure that I felt was what I put on myself or what my wife and I internally had. So to pick a side, every issue, there's a fork on the road. Every issue you can pick a side, and usually I will. In sports or even politics or whatever. And some of it is private, some of it is public, and some of it is nobody's business. Some of it I make everybody's business because I like to talk about it. But in some of this thing, it's a very, very, there's very deep waters here to navigate through in terms of talking about pandemic and response, which is, for me, I actually just, if you follow me, you know where I stand. And I wrote a song about it, so it's exactly how I feel.
Well, and that's what I want to nail down, because you're like, if you follow me, you know where I stand. I wrote a song about it. And then you're saying, but you can interpret it however you want, and different songs mean different things to different people.
If you never knew me, you hear the song for the first time, you could think something completely different.
It strikes me as a Freedom Convoy anthem. That's how it strikes me. And I think it's being embraced by the supporters of the Freedom Convoy.
That's no problem if that's how you interpret it.
If it's your song and you're okay with it, then that's okay with you.
It was not that's you putting words into my mouth.
No. I'm just telling you my impression of it.
And if that's your impression, that's totally fine, because music is subjective. But I never set out once to write the anthem of the Freedom Convoy. The Freedom Convoy is over. That was last February.
That's what I'm wondering about. I was like, why now? Why release the song? It feels like kicking a hornet's nest when you're already through the hike. You know what I mean? Do you feel like, does it feel like things...
Now, that's a very good question. Why now? I don't have an answer to that question, other than I still feel the way that those lyrics say, to a degree, and now maybe, just maybe, I'm not going to be pushed with my back up against the wall. I think.
How did you feel your back was against the wall?
Oh, countless ways. We don't have enough time or enough whiskey with this brand new bourbon that you've got to talk about that. It was endless. Anybody in arts and entertainment, actually, we all felt our backs against the wall. There is no denying that. There is nobody who escaped the last 3 years unscathed without permanent scars.
Do you think anything's ever going to go back to normal?
No.
Like if there was a Brett Kissel concert 5 years ago, you'd have people there that supported Stephen Harper at the time. You'd have people there that supported Justin Trudeau. You'd have people that supported Rachel Notley and that supported, Jason Kenney or the Conservative premiers before him. You'd have people that cheered for the Oilers and the Flames. You'd have men and women, young and old.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's the case now. And I'm not just talking about you.
No, it's a very divided world right now, and we have to get back to unity in a lot of ways. And so for me, I mean, I'm also aware that is just the state of the world at this time. If anybody does come to a concert, I mean, I do my very best to bring people in a really special way and hold their attention for 2 hours and talk about how grateful I am that they're there, how grateful I am that we're sharing these moments together. We can forget about the world for a couple of hours and we can just be and enjoy this moment. That's a wonderful thing. That's a gift that I've been given that I'm able to present in that way. But when you're saying, will anything go back to normal? Like that was the first question that you just asked, that like, no, normal, that was then, this is now.
And I'm trying to ask that question of anybody I talk to, whether it's a country star or an epidemiologist or whatever the case may be. And I don't think it will either. I hope that it will in 20 years, but I think that people have long memories. And I think that goes both ways.
Yes.
I think that people that have a conviction that some didn't do what they should have done and didn't buy in, some people that have disdain toward, for example, the Freedom Convoy, will always feel something toward friends of theirs or former friends of theirs that supported or participated in the convoy, and vice versa.
Absolutely. It was the Great Divide. It was the Great Divide. 2020 and 2021 was the year of the Great Divide. And it was unfortunate to see that. But at the same time, I'm very, very blessed to have such a great group of friends and family members and a great community. And it's so supportive and there's so much positivity there. And my amount of friends has really shrunk over the last couple of years, but by design.
I was going to ask, intentionally?
And absolutely. And it had nothing to do with opinions. It had nothing to do with all of these different things that people would think. It was just really doubling down my efforts on the people that I really resonate with and give out positivity and great energy. And I'm very grateful for the group of friends that I have right now. I mean, I think I've got a million acquaintances, but the really good group of friends I could just count on, honestly, just a few fingers. Now, what I mean by that, to all bring it all back, is that it was the year of the Great Divide. And that's just the way that it happened. So will we get back to normal? I hope that we get back to, I hope we get to a spot where things are better than they've ever been. Now that's what I'm holding the focus for.
I think that's going to take time.
It'll take time.
I hope that you're right. I hope that does happen. I don't know if it's happening anytime soon. And I think that this dust up is evidence of that. I think that people still I was trying to figure something out again, and I've been skimming and browsing the chatter around this album and this song in particular. Did you recently play a healthcare worker benefit or something in Ontario? There was or something recently. Do you know what I'm talking about? There was an association of healthcare providers that tweeted at you something. They were using their blowtorch and they weren't happy. I think they felt like they thought that you had their back, and then that the song took a big swipe at healthcare restrictions. That's kind of speculative
because I don't know exactly what particular tweet you may be talking about. Again, like I do run my social media.
Do you have a message? Put it this way: do you have a message to healthcare workers that felt like you're cracking? That you're smacking down restrictions as they were working overtime, trying to keep people out of ICUs and trying to keep people alive. I mean,
there's a lot that can be said about that particular issue. And so, no, I'm not going to talk about that. What I will say is that I played in the province of Prince Edward Island, and I've played all across the country now, doing a lot of events for healthcare workers, heroes of the front line, hometown heroes, and everything like that. It's very, very important to support and tip my cowboy hat and help raise a lot of money for very important causes across the nation. And I've done that. So my body of work really, I think, speaks for itself. So if there's some particular tweets or people on social media that are upset about this particular song, that's okay.
I don't have it in front of me. I mean, it's one thing you talked about, like Sally 123 or Barry 321 or whatever. It's different when it's like an association or an organization that's putting a tweet out there. It was one that grabbed my attention. So this is kind of an unprecedented release for you. This Compass project. You've got the South, the North, the West, and the East albums. This is the South. I have to assume a sort of a tip of the cap or a reference to your home in Tennessee.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're going to be releasing 4 albums in 1 year.
Yes.
Never done anything like this before.
No, never. And I'm extremely proud of it because each, like the needle of the compass is going to point obviously northeast, southwest. So 4 releases this year. We'll talk about a different spot in my heart and a different zone that I can really go into as an entertainer and also just as a human being. So the East record that'll come out next is all acoustic, and it's singer-songwriters, and it's an ode to the great singer-songwriters of the East Coast and how much I love that part of the world. So it's 10 songs of truly singer-songwriter. If you and I sat around a campfire and you said, hey, play me some of your favorite songs that you've ever written, songs that aren't on the radio but beautiful acoustic songs. And so it's an entire album dedicated to that. The West album is all country and Western. And knowing what that there could be some controversy. I mean, I wrote a song called Oil and Cattle, about how much I love, oil and cattle. And there's probably going to be a lot of people that don't like that song. But that's not my intention. I'm just telling people how much I love my homeland in Alberta. So I'm just, I think, a bit of a target at this time. And honestly, that's okay. Not intended, but so be it.
Well, you're not the first artist, let alone the first performer or person in the public eye to plant their flag on something. I've always appreciated your willingness to show up for conversations, and today is no different. And
well, thanks, Ryan.
I'm grateful to have you sitting here around the Real Talk table in our new studio.
Yeah, well, it's a great new studio, and yeah, thank you for the opportunity. The biggest thing that my takeaway is, on social media, people come to fight. And if you can have a real conversation, real talk, and like sometimes when the mics are off, like, hey, how do you really, really, really feel? And if there's anybody on social media that, might talk to me when I'm walking in a grocery store, say, hey, I want to have a conversation about a certain issue. No problem.
Does that ever happen?
Oh, absolutely. It's happened. Actually, many times it has.
About serious stuff?
Yes,
not just
absolutely.
Questions about life
honestly,
on the road?
And about the pandemic, whether it be, supportive of one person's particular views or really against it. And the best part about it, if you can actually look into somebody's eyes, you can find common ground. Or if you can't find common ground in those circumstances, then you need to say, you know what, maybe we'll pick this up again, or maybe in another lifetime. Maybe we'll be friends then. And that's okay too.
There he is, 3-time Juno Award winner, Brett Kissel, right here live in the Real Talk studio. Appreciate you mentioning the bourbon, by the way. People can get their hands on that.
I can't wait to try it.
We launched it on Thursday.
Congratulations.
Thanks, Brett. You can find our bourbon at Whiskey Drop. You know this. This is the Real Talk Cask No. 2 Maple Bourbon. We've done this with Broken Barrel Whiskey Company, and it's easy to find. You go to whiskeydrop.ca, and then you click on the search link, and you search Real Talk. There it is, Real Talk Cask No. 2, and it's going to pop right up for you. This is a really, really special process that the team at Broken Barrel goes through. I was telling you about these staves. As their name would suggest, they take old barrels that have been used for a number of different applications, and they smash them up with sledgehammers. They crush them. All right? And in this particular case, they took a big cask of whiskey. They crushed up the maple syrup. They crushed up the maple syrup barrels. And then they throw the staves, the wood splinters, into a fresh virgin oak cask where that whiskey is, where that bourbon is. In go the maple staves, infusing a phenomenal flavor. You can just imagine how that translates in bourbon. If you're a fan of old fashions, maple old fashions in particular, this is a bourbon you will not want to miss. It's going to sell out quickly. You can order it online. They'll even ship across Canada. You're listening to us from BC, Prince Edward Island, wherever you are. You go to whiskeydrop.ca and you can order your bourbon for delivery or pick it up at Whiskey Drop. That's Whiskey Drop in West Edmonton, the Real Talk Cask No. 2 Maple Bourbon. We're also grateful for the support of our friends at California Closets. Check out californiaclosets.ca. You want custom closets? You want to take your organization, your home decor, the value of your home to a whole new level? You'll find custom closets and storage solutions for the entire home with California Closets. It all starts with a free design consultation. They're doing garages now in a way that nobody else is. The garage, let's be honest, oftentimes overlooked, isn't it? Well, not with California Closets. You talk to their team, they'll get you all set up in a way that you'll add value to your home when you decide to sell it, but more importantly, you're going to add enjoyment and usability and functionality to your home while you're living there. Trust the team at California Closets. At Friesen Brothers, hey, it's Valentine's Day and they've got you covered. If you don't yet have a plan in place, if it's last minute panic city, Friesen Brothers has the sweet and savory charcuterie boxes at Friesen.com. Share the love of really great food with the Friesen Brothers charcuterie box. You can order these today or all the way through till February 20th. They're going to keep it going at Friesen.com. You can also learn more about the future of Alberta food. It's an artisan cuisine challenge. Friesen Brothers is proud to support an opportunity for you to check out the wares and the talents of some of Alberta's rising young chefs, the stars of today and tomorrow. Plus, Friesen Brothers, big supporters of Heart Month. You can check that out online at Friesen.com. And if you're looking this year to increase perhaps really make more of a serious commitment, increase your ability to really look to everybody and say, hey, we want to go green. We want to lessen our footprint, our environmental footprint. We want to do something that benefits planet Earth and benefits us as well. Solar is more usable, more affordable, more efficient, more reliable than ever before. Just ask the team at Kubi Energy. That's kubienergy.ca, where you can go to get your free quote. You can check out their blog there. They've got some great information, solar information on energy systems, including agriculture, what they're doing on farms and ranches. What about on the commercial side? Big warehouse installations. Kubi does a ton of those. And then, of course, residential as well. We mentioned the affordability side. The Canada Greener Homes Grant is what a lot of people are looking to right now to make the solar happen, maybe ahead of schedule. A $40,000 interest-free loan courtesy of the government of Canada. I shouldn't say courtesy. That's a weird way to put it, isn't it? But the government's making it available. It's our money, but they're making it available interest-free, payable over 10 years. And the team at Kubi Energy can get you started with your free quote today at kubienergy.ca. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, we're going to talk to Emma Gilchrist. She's a journalist and one of the founders of the Narwhal, and Amber Bracken, who's been on the show several times, an internationally renowned photojournalist who was arrested while photographing the goings-on with Suit blockade in BC. We'll get you up to speed on that story and find out why the Narwhal and why Amber Bracken are suing the RCMP. This is news that broke just yesterday, and we're looking forward to insights on that. This really is a remarkable circumstance, somewhat of a precedent-setting case. And, of course, this is one that's capturing people's attention across the country because people are talking about what freedom of the press looks like in Canada and some of the barriers that have stood in the way of the press and journalists' ability to cover stories that matter to the Canadian people. That's coming up in just a moment.
I was going to say, it's even going on in the States right now, and I know we haven't talked about it because we still don't know enough, but like with everything going on in Ohio, like, and the train wreck.
You're talking about that train derailment, that environmental disaster is... And
like the reporters are being pushed out, and they're just simply doing their jobs. It's really scary.
That story, if people have not been paying attention to it, it was something like a million liters of these toxic chemicals that were leaking, and they're getting into water sources down there. Everybody's keeping an eye on this.
But the thing is, it's all speculation. We don't know for sure because there's just no information, and everyone's trying to get information, and they're just being blocked. And I understand it's probably hard to get the exact information. Like, you know how much was on the train, you don't know how much is leaked into here or water, and everyone's scared. But I mean, at some point they just got to let people ask like questions. And I just saw another reporter from like, I think it was ABC or something, getting pushed out of a talk when they were just simply trying to get some information on this, right? It's really scary. And there was actually another train wreck, I think in Texas, like a couple days later, but yeah.
And people got to think, like, I know that, you know, we've talked about this. Remember, we had our Future of Journalism roundtable a couple of Fridays ago. And right now you look at different industries that are grappling with some of the realities right now, not in a good way, some of the real challenges. And journalism is one of those industries on at least a couple of fronts.
Yeah.
Number one, on the money side. Newspapers have really been struggling. Survival. You see a lot of newsrooms either closing down or going all digital. And then, of course, you've seen it on TV and radio as well. The small market coverage has really suffered and in some cases completely evaporated. And then you look at where public trust is at. And the public trust with journalism has taken a big hit over the past number of years, and it's among those industries that are really struggling with this. And so when you take a look at a case involving, for example, Emma and Amber, and we'll talk to them in just a little bit, it's not necessarily just fighting for Amber Bracken, or it's not just fighting for the Narwhal or other independent outlets or coverage of certain types of stories.
It's all of it.
It's all of it.
Yeah.
Right? And so you're going to see support, and I saw it yesterday online, you're going to see support from a whole bunch of other outlets, maybe not from their official accounts, but from a lot of the journalists in particular that recognize the value of this lawsuit and really the remarkable step that they've taken.
Yeah, it's just people don't understand the value of information these days. And I think we need to transfer that value and really put it back in the pockets of the people who do this. Like, nobody gets into journalism to be like, I want to, cover up lies and deceive people. Like, they get into journalism because they want to get great stories, the hard truth, and change people's minds on things or give opinions or give the whole story, like a well-balanced. And today it's just, it doesn't matter what you say. If it's not what you want to hear, you're yelling at them, right? So
yeah, no kidding, to say the very least. Before we get to Emma and Amber, we'll talk to them in just a second. Every Tuesday here on the show, we recognize and celebrate innovation. It's a huge part of what drives us forward as a society, these discoveries and the investments that people make in those innovations across the different spaces, whether we're talking in tech or healthcare, for example. Health and wellness is huge. That's why our friends at Leading Edge Physiotherapy are so big on recognizing and celebrating innovation where they see it. But we wanted to turn the spotlight around this week. In this edition of The Leading Edge, yeah, that's right, we wanted to focus on Leading Edge Physiotherapy themselves. Check out their Instagram. You can find them on Instagram at leading_edge_physiotherapy. A beautiful new video giving back a real edge in support of the Zebra Child Protection Center. For more than 20 years, the Zebra Child Protection Center has brought together community partners like the Edmonton Police Service, Alberta Children's Services, the Solicitor General to provide a continuum of support in a child-friendly environment for children and youth who have experienced abuse. It's a horrific situation, but people are doing everything they can to provide support wherever they can. Last year, almost 3,000 children and youth benefited from the services and supports at the Zebra Child Protection Center. At Leading Edge Physiotherapy, they have led the charge in supporting Zebra, and that includes the Run Wild initiative, supporting child support services programs, the Backpack Home program, where children receive backpacks full of appropriate clothing and pajamas and personal items and toys, a safe space where kids can tell. They're providing support services in the thousands for children, youth, and their families. You can learn more about what they're doing at zebracenter.ca. And we want to take a moment to applaud our friends at Leading Edge Physiotherapy for their ongoing commitment to this wonderful cause. Just this past June, Leading Edge made the Zebra Center their June charity of the month, but their commitment continues around the calendar year. You can learn more about what they do online at leadingedgephysio.com. This is presented by our friends at Leading Edge Physiotherapy. Life shouldn't hurt. This is a story that, of course, is grabbing the attention of news watchers, I think it's safe to say, around the world. Photojournalist Amber Bracken and the Narwhal are suing the RCMP. They're running this up to the Supreme Court for the violation of their charter rights after Amber Bracken was wrongfully arrested and detained while covering the enforcement of an injunction in Wet'suwet'en territory as a journalist in late 2021. Amber and Narwhal co-founder Emma Gilchrist kind enough to join us this morning. Thank you both for your time, and thanks for making yourselves available. Amber, you've told us about this arrest in past on the show. I remember back to that time in your life. It was obviously a challenging time for you as a professional. I would imagine very challenging on a personal front. What led to the announcement that you're suing the RCMP? Was this a long time coming? Did you know this was going to happen from that day back in 2021?
We knew right away that we wanted to do something, but it has been a long road to deciding to take action. I don't want to speak over Emma because I think this has been a big part of the Narwhal's due diligence, but this is a major undertaking. It's going to take a long time. It's going to be very expensive. And both the Narwhal and myself have lots of real news gathering things to be doing instead. So yes, it's been a long road to decide to take this action.
Emma, the Narwhal, and of course Amber suing for damages relating to what you describe as the RCMP's arbitrary arrest and detention. You're seeking acknowledgement that the Narwhal and Bracken's press freedom rights pursuant to Section 2B of the Charter were breached. What's your perspective on this? Why was this important for you? This isn't easy, what you're embarking on.
Yeah, I think why it was so important and why we ultimately decided to do it is because what happened to Amber was kind of the latest in a string of incidents with the police in Canada overreaching with journalists and preventing journalists from being able to do their jobs. And so when we really sat down with it, we felt like we kind of had to do it for press freedom in this country and for the fundamental principles of democracy to be upheld. You know, we've gotten into this case in Canada where there's, the baseline keeps getting lower and lower in terms of the conduct of police. You have police arresting journalists and moving them outside of injunction zones and something kind of known as catch and release. And then, they escalated with the arrest and detainment of Amber. And there hasn't been any real consequence for police. They haven't been sued for this. They haven't had to pay damages for this. There hasn't, been a declaration of a charter rights violation. And, we really need that for all journalists to be able to do their jobs and ultimately for the public to have the right to know what's happening.
Amber, how unusual was this experience? Was this arrest? I mean, like I know that journalists, I've been there before. I've never been arrested, but I've been there. You got to fight for stories, and you got to fight for that photo that could win you a World Press Photo of the Year, like you've won in past. But journalists have to be assertive. They have to get their feet in the door, so to speak. What set this one apart?
As Emma pointed to, this is a pattern of behavior, and it's been escalating over a number of years. I've been photographing for 15 years. I've been a photojournalist for 15 years, and I have watched over time as it became more and more normalized for police to incur these infringements and to interfere with journalists. And you do watch a progression. And the more that we don't do anything about it, the more that we don't stand up and say this is not okay, the more that police become acclimatized to the new normal. And so this is really important. This was 15 years in the making to have me actually be arrested and removed from my work. Because, over the years, there's a gradual increase of infractions.
Emma, what sort of support are you seeing, or what messages are you receiving on behalf of you and your team at the Narwhal from other journalism outlets? Johnny and I were talking before we welcomed the two of you to the show, and it feels like this is a fight bigger than Amber Bracken and the Narwhal versus the RCMP.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And yeah, we're very happy to have the support of the Canadian Association of Journalists, who put out a statement yesterday, and many other press freedom groups who we know are standing behind us, as well as, the larger media organizations in this country who, we felt a lot of support from since the time of Amber's arrest, because everybody's been experiencing this increasing inability to do our work due to police overreach. And so, yeah, we're definitely feeling support from media across the spectrum in Canada, as well as, hundreds of donors and supporters. We are fundraising to support this case, which is likely to cost in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is a lot for a small nonprofit news organization to take on. So, yeah, we're really happy to see an outpouring of support from Canadians across across the spectrum.
I want to let people know they can go to the narwhal.ca, and the minute that you do, you'll see a window pop up inviting you to stand up for press freedom. It says journalism is not a crime, gives you an opportunity to subscribe with your email to learn more about this case and ostensibly offer your support. Amber, were there steps taken, or maybe both of you can answer this? Amber, you first, behind the scenes, I mean, was there negotiation with the RCMP? Was there a request or an opportunity for a settlement before this lawsuit was filed? Can you take us into what happened ahead of time?
There's no offer of settlement. What happened was I was charged at the time, and then the charges were quietly dropped before Christmas, I believe Christmas Eve. And there has been some conversation, which Emma can speak to, with the RCMP. But what has become clear is that the conversation that has occurred from the CAJ, outcry from the general public, conversations such as the Narwhal had in private with the RCMP, and even direction from the Supreme Court of British Columbia, specifically directing police to reassess their use of these very vast exclusion zones and to work more productively with journalists, has changed nothing. And so this is where we have decided that it's time to step forward and look for real consequences, because that seems to be the only thing that is likely to make a difference.
Yeah, Emma, I mean, this could obviously be hugely significant.
Yeah, I think it's really important to remember that there have been a couple of court rulings in the past that have, slapped police on the wrist for what they have done in removing journalists from injunction zones. And so the fact that we haven't seen behavior change, we haven't seen policy change in the RCMP did not appear to even be aware of these decisions when Amber was arrested, really drives home the point that somebody, in the media community needs to be more proactive. And that's the difference here, is a lot of these, when media has been dragged into these battles before, they've been very reactive. And this is really that proactive attempt to really make sure that police have to change their policies in Canada permanently and acknowledge that, there is a freedom of the press in this country. It's in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms for a reason. And, when police aren't upholding the rules of this country, that's where the courts have to step in.
Amber, you've shot stateside as well. People can see some of your remarkable work at amberbracken.com. In the context of what we're talking about here with regards to freedom of the press, the relationship between, maybe you wouldn't choose that word relationship, but let me say the coexistence between law enforcement and journalists, how would you compare, based on your experience, Canada and the United States?
I actually think relationship is a fine word. I think that when everything is functioning well, there should be a coalition of professionals doing the work that they need to do and respecting the work that the other parties need to do. And throughout my 15-year career, I've never had a problem or interfering with police or getting in the way of their work. I respect the work that they have to do, and I'm happy to give them the space that they need to do that. To go back to the United States, I think I was never arrested in the United States. I think there's still challenges with working with law enforcement in any kind of heated enforcement situation. But the fact remains that I was arrested in Canada, reporting on a story that I have invested 3 years of reporting on. So I guess that's the fundamental difference.
Emma, do you, with regard, I mean, I would imagine there's been a lot of background, obviously, research on this. There's probably a lot of thought that's gone into this as well. Do you think that the average Canadian understands what's at stake here? Do you think that the average Canadian, we can talk bigger picture. I mean, just even about the birth of the Narwhal and independent journalism and storytelling and how local coverage is I hate to say dying on the vine, but in many communities across the country, it's evaporated. Does the average Canadian understand what's at stake with regards to stories being told?
I don't know that they do. I think some do. And I think this case also represents an opportunity to speak about that, and it is interesting that it comes at a time when there's been such erosion of public interest journalism in this country and erosion of trust in journalism in this country too. And so, I think this really kind of goes back to those fundamental underpinnings of democracy in terms of the need for, a free press. When you look around the world at places that don't have a free press, places where police and governments can control what the press says, you have some totalitarian regimes. And I don't think that's what people want Canada to be like. And, in order to, maintain our values as Canadians, we need to make sure that we hold the line there and make sure that baseline doesn't keep on shifting, so that we don't get on this creeping path, towards living in a kind of country that isn't, one that we recognize.
Amber, can you tell us, what your DMs have looked like, what your texts have looked like, your emails over the past 24, 48 hours, some of the more notable comments that you've received? I would imagine that you've heard from, hundreds of people.
I think it's hard to pick anyone out, but I've had an outpouring of messages of support. I would say overwhelmingly positive, overwhelmingly excited that this is happening. There is a lot of people in Canada that have experienced this and recognize the fact that exclusion zones and RCMP overreach is an issue. And people are excited to be seeing an opportunity to have this really important conversation and ideally progress legislation on it. We have let this go too far. And the worst possible moment to be dealing with this issue of police overreach is in the heat of the moment when you're actually on the ground. And that's why we need direction from the courts. We need the police to change their policies themselves, because at the moment, all you want to do is report your story. And it's not really the moment to be taking away from what you're doing to be in a disagreement with police about your ability to access the story.
Yeah, to say the least. I'm sure you've been keeping an eye on the story. It's the way that the news cycle works is if I need to tell the two of you this, but stories and stories of great significance oftentimes can drop out of our awareness. People are talking about spy balloons, floating over North American airspace, and then and obviously an environmental disaster down in the U.S. with a train derailment, and we have an election coming up here in the province of Alberta, and that means that other stories are simply falling by the wayside, or at least out of the public eye. Have you been keeping a keen eye on what's happening in the wet sweat and this blockade that was initially established back in September of 2021? Is this one that's because of not just the arrest, but your involvement in telling the story, the people that you came to know there? Is this one that continues to resonate with you on maybe almost a daily basis?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt that I always follow what's happening on the territory. The Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs still oppose the pipeline. The pipeline is still being constructed. There's still encampments out there. They just are not blockading at this time. And the Narwhal does an amazing job of following the granular reporting of what's happening with the environmental oversight and the things with the rivers and all of the different issues that come up in this ongoing story.
Emma, before I thank you both for your time, I just want to focus on the Narwhal for a second. People can check it out at thenarwhal.ca for obvious reasons. We're big fans of independent journalism and independent storytelling. I see that today, Carl Myers just published a story. Are Canadian oil sands companies working to save the planet or save face? It's gutsy telling these types of stories. It's gutsy building a team and establishing an entity and hiring people and really pushing out regular, reputable content with integrity. What led you to co-found the Narwhal a few years? It was 2018, I think, if I remember correctly. And what do you think the future looks like for independent storytellers like you and your team?
Yeah, well, I think you really kind of touched on it in talking about how a lot of these stories, they kind of drop out of the headlines and we move on to the next, unidentified flying object or whatever is, sexy in the headlines. And we really found in the Narwhal to keep an eye on those important stories that are out of sight and out of mind, and to tell them in a context-rich way that really helps people make sense of the world. We think that Canadians don't want more news, they want better news. And, since we launched in 2018, we've been able to grow from a staff of 2 to a staff of 22. So in a time when people say that people aren't willing to pay for journalism, we're finding quite the opposite. And, yeah, we look forward to continuing to invest deeply in in-depth and investigative work. We publish about once a day. We don't publish, a ton of content. We focus on quality over quantity, and our readers keep rewarding us for that. And for that, we're very, very grateful.
I mean, stories like, what you're talking about and some of the subject matter you cover, obviously the commitment that it takes to do those stories right is significant, and we wish you continued success with the Narwhal. Amber, on a personal and a professional level, we're in your corner, and we wish you well with this endeavor. People can learn more about supporting this, and of course, financially and otherwise, by checking out the narwhal.ca. You can check out Amber's work online as well at amberbracken.com. Thank you both for making yourselves available to Real Talk today. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you, Ryan.
You bet, Amber. Keep up the great work. In just a second, we're going to head out to, I think we're going to Berlin. Yeah, we're going to be talking to a scientist that's going to help us understand the chemistry of chocolate. It's Valentine's Day, and I hope that for someone, this isn't like their first notice that today is Valentine's Day. If it is, though, you've still got time to figure something out. That's coming up in just a second. These conversations happen because of the support of sponsors like our friends at Park Power, who are really, really intent on making sure that your family is not spending too much on things like electricity, natural gas, and internet. That's right. On the utilities that you need to function. But of course, as cost of living rises, as inflation rises, life's just becoming more expensive. It's never made more sense to compare rates on what you're paying for these utilities today at parkpower.ca. It takes 2 minutes and takes about 5 minutes to bring your business over to them. They'll break up with your old provider for you. You don't even have to worry about that phone call. The best part is that you can save $150 off your first bill by bundling all three services. The promo code REALTALK23 knocks $50 off if you bring your electricity business over, another $50 for natural gas, and another $50 for internet. It's never made more sense than it does to bring your business right now over to Park Power. Have you figured out your Valentine's Day plan yet? If not, our friends at the Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park are ready to bail you out big time with their triple truffle blizzard cake. Why not start your Valentine's celebration with a DQ cake? Your lover doesn't necessarily want heart-shaped jewelry. They may want a heart-shaped cake.
No one does, just for the record.
Nobody does. It's too much pressure.
Nobody wants it.
Take the pressure off and head to the Dairy Queens in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, Baseline Road. They've got you covered, whether you call ahead of time and order something or just walk right in. Plus the blizzard of the month, that triple truffle blizzard. It's the peanut butter fudge and caramel truffle blend with chocolate and, of course, that world-famous DQ vanilla soft serve. And if you're thinking takeout meal as well, maybe the honey barbecue chicken strip basket, that's my personal recommendation from the Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. Here's another idea. What about a landscaping overhaul? I mean, you're looking for something to really knock your Valentine's socks off. Why not bring your outdoor space to life? Johnny, what do you think? Maybe a water feature?
This is way better than heart-shaped jewelry.
Way better than heart-shaped jewelry. And it might cost even less, depending on the jewelry you're looking for. Mike and his team have been bringing custom visions to life, solving construction problems. I mean, all the boring stuff, but it's really relevant, like drainage or retaining walls that are collapsing. I mean, these guys are problem solvers. You can check out what they do by browsing their portfolio online. Landscapeedmonton.ca is where you will find our friends at Eden Landscaping. It all starts with a visit to their website, a quick consult, get the ball rolling so they can get shovels in the ground this spring. I love that idea for a Valentine's Day gift. Mm-hmm. Might have just figured out my Valentine's Day gift, Johnny. Hey, maybe if this is the time of year that you're looking for a new opportunity, you're a professional engineer, maybe you're catching this anywhere across the country or even outside Canada, Apex Automation is hiring all the time. They don't send us notes and say we're hiring this week or they're always hiring. They're opening up field offices. They're expanding their business in automation, in engineering, in fabrication across a number of different industries, including autonomous vehicles. Really fascinating stuff. Get on the cutting edge and be part of a team that's giving people back their time on the client side and on the team side. You can check out the careers link online today at apexautomation.ca. Well, we're going to wrap up today's show. This is fun. This is just a whole lot of fun. Now, I guess we could be enabling you in a sense right now. Today is a day where, you've had your New Year's resolutions and maybe you've sworn off chocolate for like the last 6 weeks, but maybe you don't need to. Like maybe chocolate is actually good for you. We're about to find out. Dr. Dietmar Kennepohl is a chemistry professor at Athabasca University. He's a recipient of the 2021 3M National Teaching Fellowship for his innovative approach to education. He's involved in a ton of different science outreach initiatives, including public lectures, chemistry demonstrations, and the Alberta Teachers Association Science Council workshops. He's been a chief judge at the Edmonton Regional Science Fair, and he's the author of an article, Understanding the Chemistry of Chocolate. Doctor, it's perfect timing to bring you here on the show. May I wish you a very happy Valentine's Day. Thanks for making time for us today.
So, hi, Ryan. So, thank you, and happy Valentine's Day from Berlin, where I'm coming to you from today. So
wonderful. What takes you to Berlin? Are you there on professional assignment?
Exactly. I'm here on a 1-year sabbatical leave, doing some research at the Free University in Berlin. So,
I love it.
Yeah.
People can check out in the show notes here on the podcast or on YouTube. We'll have the link there, and they can check your paper, Understanding the Passion and Chemistry of Chocolate. It's published online at news.athabascau.ca. What is it about chocolate that captured your attention as a chemist?
Well, like many natural products, chocolate has all sorts of components in it that are very interesting. And of course, especially today, because there's such a strong association of chocolate with Valentine's Day and romance. It's always interesting to talk about it, because I always like to talk to people about science and about chemistry in particular. And, if you have that hook, that interest already there in something like chocolate, it's just easier to kind of talk a little bit about the chemistry and the art and the history and all the connections that you have with chocolate.
Human beings, I guess we have to go back to, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we have to go back to the cocoa bean here, right? Like, this is where this all begins. What does the human relationship with this bean look like historically?
So this is what we know. We know that in Central and South America, we had the cocoa bean, and the indigenous people there used that for all sorts of things, for art, sometimes for currency, but they also would take the beans and crush them and make a drink out of it. And this is kind of interesting because, in modern times, we think of chocolate as something that you eat. But it was only up until, I guess, maybe the mid-1800s that chocolate was something that you would drink. So you would have your cocoa. And so in Central and South America, they would be drinking these cocoa drinks. And it had kind of not so much a romantic connection, but it was a drink that would invigorate you. And it had certain rumors of having aphrodisiac effects. So it was kind of like the Viagra of its day. And so eventually the cocoa bean and the idea of chocolate came to Europe with the explorers, and was enjoyed in Europe as well as a drink. There were like chocolate houses all over Europe. Initially, it was just royalty, but then the upper class. So if you had lots of money, you would go to the cocoa house and have a drink. And so it had that sort of reputation. But it was always something that would give you a little burst of energy. And it wasn't until, like I said, the 1800s that we had the first chocolate bar made. And even that is kind of controversial, because what do we mean by first chocolate bar? So Joseph Fry in about 1847 made just a pure, just a plain eating chocolate bar. And then several years later in 1876, Daniel Peter and Henry Nestle, you might recognize the name Nestle, teamed up to make the first milk chocolate bar. And what I really like is in the early 1900s, 1909, we have a Canadian connection. The Ganong brothers in New Brunswick invented the first nut candy bar chocolate bar. So that, they would go on, they had a chocolate factory, but they would go on fishing trips and that, and they would make themselves a little snack and put in a little bit of candy and some nuts and some caramel, and they would take that along as a treat. And that was the first chocolate bar from that perspective. So I like that Canadian connection. So we're right in there in the history of chocolate in the world. So
I don't know. As you're talking, I'm also seeing flashbacks and visions of Gene Wilder, right, in the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I'm picturing Willy Wonka and sort of the wonderment as a child that you have in seeing this whimsical presentation of how it's all put together. There are the big names, right? Like you're mentioning a bunch of them, but like I think of like the Hershey legacy. I think of the Cadbury legacy, which is, I think, widely recognized. And you write about this in your paper, the marketing genius of Richard Cadbury, who back in the 1860s started with a real marketing effort and packaging chocolates in heart-shaped boxes and the like. Is our I don't know if I say obsession with chocolate. That's me speaking personally. Generally speaking, is our affinity for chocolate as human beings, is it part chemistry and part marketing, or is it mostly chemistry, or is it mostly marketing? What do you think?
It's a bit of both. I mean, that strong association of romance and the heart-shaped boxes that Cadbury had. But there's also some pretty solid chemistry. As I mentioned, eating chocolate as a stimulant. There are things in chocolate that kind of increase the endorphins in your brain. So if you're a runner, you've heard of that, runner's high when you stress out your body enough. Well, you don't need to go through that. If you eat some chocolate, you can get a little bit high just from the chocolate itself. But there are other stimulants in there. Some of them are, like methylxanthines, which are very much like they're very close in structure to amphetamines. So things like phenylethylamine that kind of gives you a kind of a sense of giddiness and a feeling of attraction and so on. But there are other things too. There's like caffeine in there and theobromine and these kind of get you pumped up. But there are also smaller components. There's some fatty acids in there that kind of mimic cannabinoids. So and they do kind of latch on to the CB1 and CB2 sites in the brain, much like THC does, like what you would find if you were to smoke pot. It's not as strong, but there's some association there. And I personally know people who are, I would describe as chocoholics. I live with two of them. We're a family of four, and my wife and my youngest daughter. Chocolate is not just a dessert or something sweet that you eat just like any other candy. It's there's a special grandeur about chocolate that they just absolutely love. And I have met, and probably we've all met people like that really do have a passion for chocolate. And some of the things that are in chocolate, I think, drive that, in addition to just the marketing.
Yeah, I think I might be one of them, Doc. I'm a big fan of chocolate, Johnny.
Is that why you've got him on here today? You're trying to get some help.
Well, I have selfish motivation for having the doc on because this type of stuff actually fascinates me, and it does. Like if it's like on the dessert, and I'm not even really a dessert guy, doctor. I mean, I'm unless it's chocolate. Do you know what I mean? I just really, there's something about it, but I've never heard, and it's fascinating to get your take on the chemistry of it, because it maybe explains a few things about what it does to us mentally and physiologically that other treats or other sweets might not.
Exactly. And I mean, it does have, chocolate that we eat usually has a lot of sugar, and people go for that to some extent, but it's more than just the sugar. And there are things in there like antioxidants, the polyphenols in there that are apparently, the research is showing it's good for the, for heart health. It prevents you from clogging up. And although I suspect a lot of this is also, moderation is a key as well. You can't just live just eating chocolate, despite what some people want to do. But it is healthy, and usually the darker the chocolate is, the healthier it is. There's also, I guess, on the physical chemistry end of things, how it feels in your mouth and the rheology of it, how it flows and so on. People are attracted to that too. They like that how chocolate melts in your mouth and the whole experience. So there's a lot of things in play there that that make you like chocolate. And it's a big market. I mean, like the worldwide market in chocolate is over $140 billion a year. So there, you're in good company. Yeah. There are a lot of people who love chocolate.
I might be responsible for 2% of that. I don't know. But yeah, I wonder if you, so I heard what I needed to hear. I heard what I needed to hear, and that chocolate is good for you. And now I know you're going to probably say, well, in moderation and all of these types of things that make sense, and we all know about that. But I do find it interesting that, and I've heard that assertion before, that the darker the chocolate, the healthier it can be. I wonder if you can also read a little bit into people's personalities. I've got all the time in the world for milk chocolate and dark chocolate, but I can't stand white chocolate. How about you or the chocoholics in your life? Are they equal opportunity aficionados?
No, they have very definite feelings on things. So yes. Both of them are milk chocolate, and which a lot of people are. But there's some that are, the darker the chocolate, the better for them, and they are very opinionated on white chocolate. To them, white chocolate is not chocolate, and it's essentially, the cocoa butter that's in there, but you don't actually have any of the cocoa itself, the darker colored stuff. And I think, it was originally kind of made to help decorate cakes and to make chocolate designs and so on. So you don't get that full hit of all those natural products in there that I talked about with white chocolate. So, some people, like white chocolate, but I think a lot of chocoholics don't consider it actually a chocolate.
Yeah, I'd have to side with them, Doc, to be honest with you, although why fight over it? We can all get along. There's enough chocolate to go around for everyone. This has got to be a big day. I'd be curious to know, 140 billion, as you tell us, the global chocolate market annually. I'd be curious to know how much of that is sold in the first or second week of February. That's got to be, what do you think, 10, 15% at least, 20% maybe.
Yeah, I think, there's some peaks during the year. So, yeah, Valentine's Day, perhaps Easter in certain parts of the world, and of course around Christmas time. Those are the big times for chocolate.
Yeah. Anything cool happening in Berlin around Valentine's Day? Do they have any? I know, like in that part of Europe, for example, around Christmas time, they've got these wonderful Christmas markets. Do they do Valentine's Day any differently?
No, it's about the same. I would say, it's that romantic connection. You send flowers, cards, chocolates to your sweetie. The only difference, I think, is, in Germany, they figure that the whole thing was kind of started by the flower, the florists trying to drum up business. And I think in Canada, we think it's the greeting cards industry that's kind of started that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, if my math is correct, it's getting to be right around supper time. And the last thing we want to do is keep you from your Valentines. I don't want to be getting you in trouble, Doctor. So thank you so much. This is such a fun conversation to have, but also enlightening, interesting. We've all learned something today. Thanks to you. So we appreciate it.
Well, a pleasure being here. So have a good rest of the day. And
You as well, my man. Happy Valentine's Day.
Okay, take care.
Yeah, you got it. That's Dr. Dietmar Kennepohl, chemistry professor at Athabasca University. This conversation was presented by Canada's online university. You can learn more about them at athabascau.ca. You know that Athabasca University is one of the largest research universities in the entire country. I'm starting to see, Johnny, maybe if they have like a PhD in chocolate. That's something I would be all over that. I'd have to maybe do like a graduate degree in cardiovascular maintenance as well, if you wanted to keep the two running with synergy.
It's a good mix.
You could be just a few clicks away from your next big milestone. If this conversation lit a fire under you, if you've decided that today is the day that you're going to look into the next phase of your life, whether it's maybe a program or a course, maybe it's an undergraduate degree, a master's degree, what about a PhD? You know, Athabasca University is Canada's largest nursing, the school of the graduate degrees, the master's degree in nursing. Nobody graduates more nurses than Athabasca University. How incredible is that? Chances are, if you're in a clinic, if you're in a hospital, you see a nurse there hard at work, there's a very good chance they graduated from Athabasca University. You can learn more about that. I mean, we don't have all the time. We don't have enough to get into all of the programs and courses, all of the opportunities. But you can check them out yourself today on the easy-to-navigate website, athabascau.ca. That's Canada's online university. And as, of course, we take a look around this studio where we broadcast from every day, we're always so grateful for the amazing support of our friends at Complete Care Restoration. This studio was built entirely by the team at Complete Care. And it's so funny when you talk to them, they say, well, we really hope that no real talker ever has to call us. Why? Because, well, they handle emergency services, fires, floods, disasters. You know, your pipes burst, heaven forbid, or maybe there's a house fire, heaven forbid. You got to get it cleaned up. Chances are your policy, your insurance policy, allows you to pick the company that's going to do the restoration work. We wholeheartedly recommend the team at Complete Care Restoration. You can find them online at completecarerestoration.ca or give them a call today at 780-454-0776. When disaster strikes and you want that cleanup done right with your most important investment, your home, we recommend you trust Complete Care Restoration.
I'm absolutely loving the comments during that interview.
Oh, yeah? We got some chocoholics in the house?
One person's like, sweet interview.
Oh,
another
very
person's
well
like,
done.
Another divisive
yeah, that's right. Well, I mean,
as you were talking about white chocolate, people were like, oh, and also like I only eat the like what's it called? What's the one with there's no milk in it? My wife buys
okay,
it.
I don't know.
Like
Is
the
it
dark chocolate,
not marzipan.
right?
I don't know.
So she makes everything with dark chocolate, like real chocolate, right?
Yeah.
So like now I've become accustomed, like sometimes I'll have chocolate and people are like, oh, it's plant-based, and I can taste. I'm like, whoa, this is really creamy. Like now I'm accustomed to like the dark, just pure, like more percentage of cocoa, right? So
You're
now
used
I'm
to
on
the
that boat.
Life in the lap of luxury.
Yeah. It is weird when he was talking about it, though. Chocolate is like this magical thing, right? Like most things that melt in your mouth are cold. It's always warm, but it stays like solid at room temperature. It's like it's this whole experience when you pop chocolate in your mouth. It melts. You get the sweetness. You do, like when he was talking about it, my wife is literally a chocoholic. I think she's addicted.
She sounds like a connoisseur.
She's
like she knows her stuff.
Like there's something there, right? It is like almost like a narcotic. It gets you going.
Can you imagine? Well, that was interesting to hear that it has qualities similar to cannabinoids.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then sort of like an impact similar to THC on the human brain, which is pretty fascinating stuff.
I like how he referred to cannabis as pot.
Yeah, he's like, you know, if you're like smoke pot, If you would have said smoke weed, it might have been even funnier. But I'm not surprised to hear that. I remember hearing about the birth, and I don't know if this is true. Everybody has their own stories. But I was lucky enough, 15 years ago or so, to travel on assignment to shoot a mini documentary in Ethiopia. And when they prepare you per Ethiopian tradition, when they roast coffee beans in front of you and grind them in front of you and prepare this coffee that will just blow your mind. It's so amazing. And hearing the stories like thousands of years ago when humans first discovered the properties or the benefits of the coffee bean. And I remember hearing the story about how I think it was like a shepherd or something, or someone that was keeping goats, and they had seen that the goats were like nibbling on the coffee beans, and then the goats would be like basically supercharged after the fact, and they'd be running and jumping around. And that's how humans first, at least this is how the folklore goes. This is how human beings had first recognized some of the qualities that coffee beans contained.
Well, as you're talking about that, we all know that, the majority of chocolate comes from like West Africa and Ghana. So there's a whole other conversation we could get to about the
fair
ethical
trade. Sure.
I was like, we're running out of show though.
No, but people, and you're right. And people want to know more, and whether it's like animal proteins or fresh produce or treats like chocolate or,
but specifically,
wine. People want to know about the fair trade elements to it. They want to know that they can feel good about consuming the product. And I think that's maybe more true now than ever before.
100%. And you mentioned in the interview, chocolate on the rise. I'm looking at charts as you guys were discussing. Global chocolate production and consumption has been rising since like the late 90s, early 2000s, and it's predicted to go even higher by 2035. So we could get into a whole conversation about the production of chocolate and how much more they're going to need. And,
did he say 140 billion?
Yeah. Yeah. I was looking at one chart that said up to 150 by 2035.
Wow.
So
like, think about that for
the
a second.
amount of chocolate. And it basically, I'm looking here, it comes from just two countries. And they're both in Africa, the majority of them. So
we might have to do like a chocolate-themed show.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to be thinking about for the rest of the day, obviously. We're also going to be working on the shows coming up for the remainder of this week. Give you a quick heads up. We'll focus on another independent journalism outlet on Friday when Jeremy Clauses joins us in studio from The Sprawl. Then a Real Talk Roundtable presented by Urban Timber with improv artists. We're going to wrap up our week with a few belly laughs. It should be fantastic. Tomorrow on the show, Max Fawcett from the National Observer, why Rachel Notley needs to hit the panic button. Thanks for liking and subscribing to Real Talk.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harman Kandola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.